We could have Dr. Rudd and Melissa Barkowski please show themselves on the camera. That would be appreciated. All right, thank you very much. Good evening. This is Dr. Casey Kasorek, Superintendent of the Hilton Central School District. I'd like to welcome you to this very important webinar to update the community on our recent bomb threats and provide an update on where the district is in their emergency plan, and also take questions this evening and answer them. So we will stay on the webinar this evening until we can answer all questions. I do want to remind everyone that this evening's webinar is recorded and will be placed on our website. I would also like to remind everyone the purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss the recent bomb threats and keeping students and staff safe. Tonight's webinar is not to discuss the current challenged book in the library. So we will not be answering questions about that this evening. There is a process and format for that that the district is engaging in, and this evening is not that. So I greatly appreciate it. So I'd like to start out by introducing the folks on the call tonight that will work together to help to answer your questions. We have Ned Dale, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Also joining this evening, we have Mr. Adam Geist, Assistant Superintendent for Business. We also have our Director of Safety and Security, Mr. David Inzana. We have our Director of Transportation, Mr. Matt Schultz. We have our high school principal, Dr. Jeffrey Green. We have our Quest principal, Mr. Derek Warren. Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Mrs. Kristen Polini. We also have our Merton Williams principal, Mr. Mark D'Amico, and our Northwood principal, Mrs. Melissa Perkowski. Our village principal, Mr. Ben Rudd, Dr. Ben Rudd. Thank you. It's been a long day. And also our facilitator tonight will be our district clerk and also our administrator responsible for reporting and compliance, and that's Ms. Tracy Zabeda will be our facilitator for this evening. This evening's meeting is also provided in closed caption. So I'm going to begin with a brief presentation, and then we will open it up for questions. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening online within short notice out to the community. I want to start out by thanking the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, the Greece Police, the New York State Police, RPD, our Director of Safety and Security, our staff, our administration, our students, our district families, and our community. I understand and realize this has been an extremely difficult time for everybody in our learning community. The following is a timeline of the events that took place today. A threat went to the local media. That threat was then shared with the sheriffs at 7:15 this morning, and then our district was notified at 7:20, while Merton Williams and high school students were already in session. We made the decision to hold elementary students on buses and put Quest on the delayed start. The threat at that time was not deemed credible by the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, but they decided to deploy the K-9 units out of abundance of caution. Northwood and village exteriors and interiors were swept by nitrate dogs. Once cleared, students re-entered the building. Quest students were notified of a delayed start time. The building was also swept. Students at both Merton Williams and the high school were in a hold-in place. Both buildings were swept by nitrate dogs, and both the interior and exteriors of the buildings as well. Classes resumed for the remainder of the day. All after-school activities had taken place as scheduled. This threat was the same threat that was submitted to media and law enforcement on Wednesday, with the exception of one additional line threatening to throw Molotov cocktails into district offices. The threat was from the same domain as Wednesday's threat. Throughout the events of the morning, parents and guardians were able to pick up their children from school if they wished to do so. We appreciate families' patience as we brought students from the building to reunite them with their families. I'm saddened that we are once again the receipt of such a threat. It was our intention to hold an as normal as possible school day, given the lack of credibility to the threat. Had I known that this morning the degree of disruption in today's events would be as great as it is, I would have closed schools. This weekend, district administration will be meeting with Sheriff Baxter from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office and Chief Wood from the Greece Police Department, along with other district administration, to improve our process and continue to work to make sure that if we do receive a future threat, that we are prepared to keep people safe and also continue to keep the school open. At this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Zabadel, and she will begin to facilitate questions to our administrative team. And we will do our best to answer all questions this evening.
Okay, the first question has to do with communication. So, Mr. Dale, this is going to be for you. Why is the robocall going on to the families before there's a game plan at school?
As we continue to communicate out, trying to use Infinite Campus as a way to get information quickly to students or to parents and staff. We provided an update and again, tried to be transparent with what the threats are. The difficulty has been some of the timing of the messages. The threats aren't coming directly to the district. They're going to the media first, then to law enforcement, then to the district. And so when the district receives the threat, we confirm the threat with our director of security as well as law enforcement, and then have communicated out those pieces using Infinite Campus. We also have recognized that when simultaneously evacuating all 5 schools, it has created difficulty through Verizon Wireless and other networking systems. So including myself receiving messages or phone calls with nothing on the other end of the message. We are working on that currently and will certainly provide additional updates in the future.
I think it's also important to note, thank you very much, Mr. Dale, that due to the fact that these threats are first coming into the media, that often there is, that information is being shared with other families and other individuals before the district is even contacted with the threat. So in a goal to be, continue to be more transparent, we are putting out as much detail as possible. So in an effort, because information has been shared, we are putting out statements and simultaneously working on a plan to keep everyone safe. It's a pretty complex situation when information is shared on social media prior to the district receiving the threat.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is going to be for you, Mr. Dale, again. Is text message an option with these messages?
Yes, it is an option. One of the issues that we have identified, in particular in working with one parent on Wednesday, when they enrolled their child in 2019, they didn't select all of those options. One of the areas that we would like to address in the next couple of days is making sure that people can update their profile selections. So if they select voicemail, they select messaging, they select emails, if they would like to update their email, if they've purchased a new phone and a new phone number has not been updated yet in Infinite Campus, we think it's important that we continue to get that information out. And it's also just a good reminder to parents to make sure that your schools have the most up-to-date information. We recognize that individuals do change their phone numbers, and often, again, it's so important that you may tell your teacher, your child's teacher, but telling the district so that when these issues happen, you're getting the correct phone calls.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Kocourek, continuing on with communication. When the calls went out and the buildings were close together, was it ever a consideration to take the kids away from the schools, such as Fireman's Carnival grounds or the Tops parking lot, to gather them there for safety and for ease of access?
So absolutely, it was considered. When the first threat came in on Wednesday, due to it being investigated by the Monroe County Sheriffs, it was deemed not a threat. Although it was deemed not a threat, we still needed to take the precaution of bringing in the nitrate dogs. So at that point in time, the district made the decision to put students on the bus we needed to call back many of our bus drivers, close to 90 of them. So they needed to come back and bring the buses back. We evacuated like we would. We always run evacuation drills. Some of you may remember them as fire drills, but now they're called emergency evacuation, where we move the students outside the school. We make sure that they're accountable. And what we did is that point is we believed that due to the fact that the threat was not credible and that the threat was a pipe bomb, and being educated by the police on the ballistics of the pipe bomb, we felt that having students far enough from the away from the building would keep them safe. We also thought that that would be a more effective way of reuniting students with their families, asking them to come to their school. Now, we've debriefed after that first day, and we have learned that by bringing parents to the schools may have caused some additional congestion and difficulty in getting parents to pick up their students. So knowing that now, after we've debriefed, we are working on a plan to make sure that in the future, if we have to evacuate and leave school grounds, that we would be putting students on the buses that are available, and we would be moving them to an alternate location. We would be communicating that with parents so that parents could reunite with their student at a different location. We want to be very thoughtful. We know families have students across the district in different buildings, so making sure that we're able to the best of our ability, make one place so that students can be picked up for the convenience of the parent during a crisis situation. So that's where we're at. Like I said, we're going to meet with law enforcement this weekend. We're going to continue to refine the plan. Our plan will now include off-campus location to reunite people when we have to evacuate the entire district.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dale, we're going to stay on communication for a little bit. Some calls were coming in late, some were broken. You sort of alluded to this before. They were difficult to understand. Can you fix that?
Actually, we are currently in the process as Proposition 1 was approved. Part of redoing our entire network infrastructure is one area that we will be able to make improvement with regard to the cell towers. We are aware that they are lapsing and letting 4G go in order to improve their own network and go to a 5G cell tower. This has been unfortunate because I think we've seen a decrease in our efficiencies with our cell phones. I can tell you personally within the district, it can be very challenging at times to have phones work at any time. This week was no shortage of that. One of the areas that we found was that when parents arrived to pick up all of their children, the network definitely was stressed and information was having a difficult time getting through to individuals. However, it's super important to know that 4,780 calls were confirmed, so that we know that to be, but we do have additional phone calls that we need to make sure are also getting through. Just to go back for a second on the texting question that you had, there is a character limit too. So when the district goes to send something out, there is a character limit. So we will all work on that to make sure that we can capture messages going out of the district using that text capacity, paying attention to the character limit.
Thank you. We're going to go right back into texting. So we have messages from families that are hard of hearing and deaf saying that they understand that. However, they do want to make sure you are exploring the best way to use text messaging and possibly using email always with calls so that they can access the information regardless of how you need to send it out. Is that doable every time for families that are hard of hearing or deaf?
Yes, pairing a cell phone call with the message is absolutely doable. And again, making sure that your preferences indicate that you want a voice call as well as the email. And again, you can select multiple email addresses if you have additional preferences that you would like to add. Again, we'll be getting out more information next week about that.
Great, thank you. This next question, we're going to ask a few about law enforcement. So Mr. Anzana, you may want to handle this first one. Will the federal government the FBI be involved in tracing whomever is making these threats?
Yeah, I can't speak directly for law enforcement. I can tell you that through my past experience with my former employer with the Sheriff's Office, we were partnered with the FBI in what is called the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And that is, where local PDs or the Sheriff's Departments work with the FBI on these type of tasks. The FBI has its own cyber crime investigation unit. And because these emails were also sent to other parts of the United States with similar messages that we received, I'm sure that they are looking into tracking where these emails generated from.
I would add as well, similar to Mr. Inzana, I can't comment on law enforcement, but what I can say is that the FBI is aware of this situation, and I confirmed that with them today.
Thank you. Can we follow up on that, probably with both of you? Has there been any progress in the investigation that would provide parents with any sense of security for their children, or are there any new leads on who may have done this?
What law enforcement has reported to us and what they reported at their news conference today was that at this time they don't have any ties to anyone here locally that could have that may have sent the email out. That doesn't mean that that isn't the case, but at this point they don't have any evidence or anything pointing towards anyone locally in the area. We'll get updates probably as all of you will, probably through the news media. I mean, the law enforcement is not going to share directly with the school district their investigations. They have to keep those private, and that is just because they can't be compromised. But I will tell you that if they do make any progress at all, I'm sure that it's going to be reported. I mean, this is something that has made national news now. So.
Okay, thank you. We know that Captain Rojas mentioned that these similar threats are happening in other jurisdictions. The question is, what does that mean if it's happening in other jurisdictions? Are other school districts receiving the exact same email threats, and is the same thing happening there? Is this local or is it far away?
Again, I don't have any specifics to the other emails, but what was expressed to me by the Sheriff's Office was that these emails that are being received in other parts of the country are all very similar messages. Again, saying that there is materials in our school district that people believe are that shouldn't be there, and that because of that they're making threatening remarks. So again, I can't that it's not shared with me, that information. That's again part of their investigation that they have to just keep to themselves.
The media did report today that a school in Iowa received a threat and was sent home for the day, and it was based on the same book title that has been included in our thread as well. And that's been reported by the media, so I feel confident in being able to share that.
Thank you. Let's continue right on with that, Dr. Kocourek, because this connects. This person's asking why Hilton Central School District is being specifically targeted in our area. And I think it connects to what you just said.
Well, I am not law enforcement. I'm trying my best to be a superintendent of schools. What I can tell you is that potentially, because some community members have verbalized their concern about the material in the library, the literature selection, often what happens then in communities, no matter what the topic of controversy, everybody's on social media, or they're on the Nextdoor app, or they're on different types of social media. So then what you'll see is people starting to have discussions on either side of the topic. You know, in this situation, some community members decided to meet for a meeting. That dialogue continues to happen on social media. And then what happens is these people making the threats potentially are picking up on that discourse within our community, and they want to make it worse by then creating that threat. Now, that is my opinion. I'm not an expert, but putting the pieces together, in my personal opinion, I believe that's what's happened here.
Thank you. We're just going to recap to make sure we answer this next question thoroughly. What made this threat not credible?
Well, from my opinion, the reason that the threat was not credible is it was identical to the threat that we had on Wednesday, outside of the addition of the fact that it said that they were going to have additional types of explosives thrown into the offices. The same address it came from, and other than that, it was very similar in nature. That's what I can tell you. And once again, I'm not law enforcement, but that would be my opinion. I think that Mr. Inzana may be able to add more to my comment.
Yeah, you know, when you look at the email, the information in there is very generic. These are all things that can be picked up right off our website. You know, the fact that, you know, there was tried to be some specific information as far as an address, which was completely inaccurate. And, you know, just the way, if you look at the way it was written, there's a lot of different things that law enforcement is going to look at to deem, you know, whether it's credible or not. Again, a lot of it has to do with the domain that it came through. It was a .ru domain, and those things are not regulated in other countries like we have regulations here for IP addresses and whatnot in the United States. So, and just the fact that this type of incident was very similar to what they call a swatting, where someone will call a false call in that there's people being shot somewhere, and that then they'll get a response from law enforcement where, you know, they think that there's an active shooter or something like that going on. So these are all very similar things that unfortunately are happening in our country.
Thank you. This next question, I think probably Dr. Kasorik, you can answer. So the presence of law enforcement. This person talked about driving by 3 of the schools on 3 different occasions yesterday, and there were no police cars at any schools. They thought there was going to be a police presence all day. Can you please tell them why the police are there at times and not others?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, but I can tell you that we were told by the Sheriff's Office that we would have cars present at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and throughout the day. I know that the Sheriff's Department had allotted a large amount of their resources to the Hilton Central School District. So potentially, if you didn't see them at one building, they maybe have moved to another building. But the goal throughout the day was to provide as much support to the district as possible. Unfortunately, when this type of heinous threat happens, there are real crimes and other issues happening across the county that they have to respond to. There unfortunately aren't enough police available to make sure that there are police in all schools at all times every single day. That wasn't necessarily realistic, but we had a very strong presence, even though an individual may not have seen a car at the time that they had come to one of our schools. I can tell you that there was a police presence throughout the district, a heavy one, both on Wednesday, Thursday, and today.
Yeah, I can just add real quick, you know, you touched on the fact that, you know, there's only so many resources law enforcement has, but I can tell you that, you know, outside of having a heavy law enforcement presence, and even though they may not have been everywhere all at the same time, you know, the school also has surveillance and was very vigilant in making sure that we were watching who was coming and leaving our buildings during the school day. So, you know, if we saw something suspicious, I know that we would have an immediate response with law enforcement at our schools in a very, very short period of time.
Thank you. Dr. Kosarik or Mr. Anzana, if you're aware, what cyber departments are you working with to track and catch these terrorists?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Anzana. I have no information on what special units are working to catch the criminals here.
Yeah, the Hilton Central School District doesn't have any specifics on who is actually working on the investigation. We will provide tips to them, anything that we feel is suspicious, out of the ordinary, and the information that they ask of us, we're going to provide to the sheriff's office. And again, really, I told you, as I spoke before, it's not just local law enforcement, it is state and federal also involved in our JTT task forces. So.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to stick with you two for another minute for another safety question. Dr. Kosarik, what does the district plan to do if this happens a third time?
Well, it depends on the time of the threat. So something we learned today as we were able to debrief is, as I mentioned in my opening statement, if we knew how much disruption was going to take place, we most likely would have canceled the day. I think that it's important to remember that we do not want to be bullied or intimidated as a community. And what these people want us to do is to continue to cancel school and to continue to disrupt our community. So we have to balance. We have to balance the validity and the concern of the threat. I take this safety of all of our students and our staff very seriously. It's the #1 priority. So we have to make sure that our schools are safe. In today's instance, we had already started the school day at both the high school and Merton Williams. In hindsight, possibly canceling the elementary school. We have a meeting this weekend. We have some ideas. We are looking to meet with the sheriff, Baxter, and then also the chief of the Greece Police Department. And we really want to take a look at what ways that we would be able to ensure that if we receive another threat, we wouldn't have to close schools. So the strategies that we have, unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable sharing with the community because they don't want to compromise those strategies. But we are working continuously through the weekend to make sure that we can do the best we can to keep people safe. That doesn't mean we may not have to evacuate in the future. It may not mean that we don't have to send students home or cancel the day. That's not the goal. The goal is to keep people in school and keep everybody safe so that students can continue on with their learning.
Thank you. This next question, we're going to ask to a couple of the superintendents. They're asking, what can the community do? What can families do? And what can parents do to help out in these situations? So Mr. Dale, can you just recap what they can do in terms of getting information when something is happening? And then Ms. Polini, if you could talk about what families can do with their children in these circumstances, if they are sent home or asking questions, and then we can follow up with Mr. Geis or Dr. Kosarik if they have anything to add.
Certainly. Shortly after joining the district last year and a half ago, we registered for a program called the Safe Schools Helpline. This has been an incredible help and support to our district. This is an anonymous way for parents and community. The phone call is accessible right on all of our web pages, all of our schools' web pages. The Safe School Helpline will communicate with us anything anonymously. We have received multiple reports this week that have been communicated and forwarded to the authorities. There was nothing, when something's out of ordinary, you certainly want to call that in. We will certainly, we get phone calls. There's 24 hours, 7 days a week monitoring. We get phone calls. If it's in the middle of the night, they will sometimes contact local authorities in the middle of the night. So this is super important that we stay vigilant. If you hear people talking about making the threat, sending an email, hey, do you know how to send an email like the one was sent? I can show you. We certainly are very interested in hearing all of that information so that we can provide it to law enforcement. And as Dr. Kosarik indicated, follow up on the individuals responsible.
As far as what parents can do to help their children in situations like this, I can share with you that we did activate our trauma, illness, and grief team after the initial evacuation on Wednesday and had them at the ready for any on-demand counseling that was needed or any small group counseling that was needed. Our counselors and TIG trained officials were there at the buildings to support students. We also engage in a collaborative Monroe County Trauma, Illness, and Grief Consortium as well. And we had neighboring school districts at the ready should we need additional counselors for them to come over. That's a common practice that we use across Monroe County. So immediately on Wednesday, our Director of Support Services reached out to Monroe County Trauma, Illness, and Grief contacts to let them know what our needs might be coming up. And we have neighboring school districts ready to provide us additional resources when necessary. Principals did send out to families after Wednesday's events a link to an article on how to talk to your children about situations when the news is scary, which is probably a little more appropriate for our elementary students. And I would refer parents back to those resources. I want to reinforce some of the wonderful things that parents did to assist in the situations on Wednesday and again today. When parents remain calm and patient and follow the processes, I know that can be stressful, and I know that can be scary, but children really do feed from the energy of the adults around them. So the parents overwhelmingly were very positive, very patient, and worked with us to reunify them with their children as quickly and as safely as we could do so. So that's really, really important. Please know that those trauma, illness, and grief resources will continue throughout next week. And at any time, if your child needs to speak to a mental health professional, please do reach out to the school district. You can start first with your child's teacher or with the principal in the building. If you don't know the counselor's name directly, you can certainly reach out to the counselor as well. And we're more than happy to support your children as they need throughout the coming weeks and for as long as they require the services.
Thank you very much. Mr. Geist, can you share with us, we have a question about who represents the Hilton Central School District for any legal matters?
Yep, our primary legal counsel is Harris Beach. We do occasionally outsource and go to a couple different firms, but our primary one is Harris Beach.
Thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Anzana, can you share, this is going to be our last question on law enforcement for a while. What exactly does it mean when a building is being swept? And who is doing it? Is every single room checked by a qualified person before people re-enter? And is a dog entering each room in the sweep?
Yeah, so when, we are checking our buildings for any type of nitrate substance, canine is going in, and normally it is with someone that is familiar with the building as well. So we teamed up with employees and the sheriff's office and walked through the buildings. The dogs are very good at alerting on things. They don't have to be like right on top of it. So if they smell anything a distance away, it's going to draw their attention to it. I know on Wednesday we went through all the buildings. I wasn't there present, but I believe that they went through every room. Today, we initially had our employees and sheriff's office deputies walk through and visually look for suspicious packages or anything out of place. The employees are really the ones, especially like teachers in their rooms, are going to know if, hey, this doesn't belong here, right? Or this looks weird, or I didn't move this here. They're going to know where their room is. Someone from the outside sheriff's office is not going to know that doesn't belong there. So, we relied on our teaching and our support staff today. And then again, K9 came in. They did sweeps through hallways. We checked areas of common places. We checked private area mechanical rooms. And if we had a specific concern, then we would check that area as well. But, we were very satisfied with the way the searches went. And, again, once that initial, because there was threats to all 5 buildings, once that initial building was checked and done, we were highly confident that, again, this was just another hoax. And just one last thing to add, law enforcement is not going to turn the building back over to the school district until they are 100% confident that the area is safe. So they're not going to tell us to go back into a building that they don't believe is completely safe.
Thank you very much. This next question is for our Director of Transportation, Mr. Schultz, and then Mr. Geist, if you want to follow up with anything, that would be great. The question is around the idea of collaborating with neighboring districts. Can neighboring districts provide busing support in such scenarios when all district students need to be bused home simultaneously and there are not enough buses in the district to transport them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we made the decision on Wednesday that we had enough drivers and buses to house all Hilton students. In working with district office, we had about 100 buses, so we can mathematically have enough buses that we would need to get students home or to an alternate site if needed. For today, because buses were kind of staged at the 2 elementary schools, we also have about 30 out-of-district runs for different reasons, whether it's private parochial or special education. I reached out to 3 different neighboring districts. One of those districts was able to provide to us 20 drivers and buses if needed. It was just a call that I would have made to that particular district, and they would have been here in about 15 minutes with those buses to support us if needed. And the 2 other districts were able to probably provide between 8 and 10 buses. So if we made the decision differently, or we had, like, for example, to evacuate the high school and the middle school, and at Hilton we didn't have enough buses and or drivers to do that, neighboring districts were on the ready to go. Drivers were in those buses at those bus garages, and it was just a call that I was going to make if I needed to get them ready to go and get over to Hilton as soon as possible. And then we could have, taken it from there and reunited those students to their PM buses or whatever was needed. But yes, for sure, we had the support of local districts, and they reached out on Wednesday as well. But today we had some more strong plans in place if needed.
Yeah, I can tell you that, we had 3 or 4 districts that, as our director Matt said, we're ready to help both on Wednesday and today. We do appreciate the support that they gave us. We didn't necessarily utilize that support for various reasons. And there are so many logistics that go into transportation. On that first day on Wednesday, all of our drivers were done with their morning runs. They were back to their homes, eating breakfast, doing whatever they're doing in preparation to come back for their either midday or return runs. And so we had to kind of activate that and get all those drivers back here in a moment's notice on Wednesday to do that. So our emergency plans have been set up to evacuate 1 building at a time. It was really stressed when we had to evacuate all 5 buildings at the same time. So we were in contact with those districts to provide support. But as Matt said, we mathematically we had enough to at least house the kids on all the buses. We had worked with the law enforcement to make sure that that was a good plan, a legitimate plan, to make sure that the kids were safe while we went through, all the steps that we needed to ensure that the building could be reoccupied.
Thank you very much. This next question, we're going to shift topics into academic concerns. Dr. Green, this comes directly from a student in 11th grade. They are wondering if these events are going to get the regents canceled. The student says that they're feeling that their class, specifically history, is getting behind on lessons because they missed Wednesday and then due to scheduling, skipped it on Thursday. And then many kids got picked up early today, causing the lessons to not be exactly the same or for some to miss them. If possible, will you please consider canceling the regents? After you answer that, Ms. Pelini, if you could follow up with your experience and knowledge about canceling state tests as well.
Thank you, Mr. Beto. So the regions are a New York State exam, same exam administered across the entire state to all schools. So that is not something that would be under purview of myself or Dr. Kasorek or anybody at the district level. But what I would say is that our teachers are professionals. You know, it's unfortunate that we've had to miss some class time on Wednesday and then many students leaving today. But they're able to take the time to adjust. And we also offer dozens and dozens of opportunities for additional extra test prep outside of the regular classroom instruction. That's something where I've been sharing out a shared calendar very recently in my recent updates. And that's going to continue on through the rest of March, as well as April, May, and June, leading right up to the region so we can make sure that our students are as prepared as possible.
I don't have much to add to Dr. Green's response. That was really thorough. Again, it's not something that would be in a school district's local control. I would liken it to the Buffalo schools had to shut down for significant amounts of snow at certain times this year, and we didn't have to do that here in Rochester. So we do tend to miss a day here, a day there for emergency closings, and again, have full faith in our teaching faculty that they will be able to make considerations in the curriculum to ensure that essential instruction occurs. And again, we also have those supports built in at the high school as well for additional region support.
Thank you very much. This next question is for the schools. So we're going to start with Mr. Warren. How do we get the teachers to send home homework and lessons so that they can keep their kids on track while the district figures this out?
Well, I think at the elementary level, we have, we have a lot of research with the amount of time that we should be giving for homework and everything. So similar to what Dr. Green said, we would be modifying and adjusting as we go and making sure that all the content, all the state standards are addressed and that we're not missing anything that's essential. So our teachers are all flexible and they are, student-centered and they're going to make sure that our students are that there's not new holes that are being created based on this. So we will continue to collaborate together in the future as well.
Thank you. Ms. Blaney, would you like to add anything to that or address the secondary families that may be asking that as well?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. So I'll answer kind of in two different ways. One, if we're asking for work to be sent home on a day like today, hopefully we can understand that in emergency situations together, work would only impede our safe exit from the buildings. And so that wouldn't have been possible in an emergency situation today. I'm wondering if that question is more so moving forward, can we assign some of that additional work? And I would go back to the mild winter that we've had here. And so typically in Rochester school districts, we're often closing for snow days or inclement weather 2-3 times throughout the course of a winter. We've been really fortunate. So I think with 2 days of missed instruction, our teachers will be able to make the accommodations necessary to their lessons in order to catch students back up from those days.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kasorek, we have a family saying they are not comfortable sending their child to school on Monday. Very well could be many additional days pending the situation. They would like to pick up classwork and do schoolwork at home until this is resolved. Is it an option for parents to keep their child out of school, yet have the school create and deliver assignments?
Unfortunately, we do not have the capacity to provide an option for students to stay home and also deliver the curriculum. We learned a lot of valuable lessons throughout the pandemic. We are not in a good place to provide remote instruction. It would be near impossible to ask our teachers to teach the students present and also to teach remotely. So unfortunately, that would not be an option. A parent always has the right to keep their child home from school, but they would be missing instruction. One of the thoughts, if someone was feeling extremely uncomfortable and not having their students return to school, is to work with Mrs. Pelini's office and apply for home instruction as far as homeschooling. So I know that's not an answer people probably want to hear, but unfortunately, homeschooling, if someone was looking not to return to school for a long period of time, would most likely be the best option.
Thank you very much. This next question is about an outside agency, the Center for Youth. Mr. Warren is going to address this first, and then Ms. Pelini, if you would like to add anything, please join in. Mr. Warren, speaking for the entire district, can you tell what is the Center of Youth does is a partnership with our school, because this person heard that the Center for Youth would be reaching out to our district after the bomb threat. What does that partnership entail, and have they reached out?
Yep. So the 3 elementary schools all have a Center for Youth employee that works right within the building. They're even though they're an outside vendor, they're part of the staff. They provide us with resources such as social emotional supports. If staff needs support in working with students and working with their entire class on maybe restorative circles and just processing and communicating. I can speak for the experience in my school. On Thursday, we had our Center for Youth person. She was going room to room, just checking on kids, just being a familiar face, making sure that every child was ready to go, ready to learn, and felt safe and secure. So they're an awesome resource that we have that are here and they're flexible, and they're able to kind of provide us with whatever we need in that moment, be it one-to-one support with a child, a small group, or helping a teacher or someone in the classroom lead a restorative circle or something of that nature where conversations and processing as a group has to happen.
We're really fortunate to have a partnership with an organization like Center for Youth to provide additional mental health counseling to students in the district when needed in an ongoing basis. I can share with you that we've been fortunate to receive a number of outreach efforts from different area organizations such as Center for Youth. Oftentimes they're looking to provide additional services such as counseling or coming in to support staff. We're currently vetting some of those offers from area districts and then consistently working with our principals to understand the needs in their building as they arise to match students and or staff with appropriate resources to support them through this time.
Thank you very much. This next question has to do with the absences that are being reported on children's records. So this parent wants to know, they took their child out of school today. Why was it marked unexcused? Dr. Kasork, can you explain that? Or if not, can you pass it off to another superintendent who might be able to?
Yeah, I would ask Mrs. Pelini to take that on, please.
So per New York State regulations on attendance reporting, there are certain codes that we have to use based on the reason for the child's absence. And so today would be an unexcused absence in the sense that it doesn't align with those codes for legal absences for New York State. I think it's important to note that although the absence may be marked as unexcused, it's not going to be used in a way to penalize any students based on an absence Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday this week. So if there are specific concerns, parents can reach out to the buildings, but please know that there will not be any repercussions for those unexcused absences for children this week, or even if into next week. The reason for the unexcused absence is still a concern for safety.
Thank you very much. We have a series of questions about remote instruction. Dr. Kasork, I'm going to ask you to start this and then pass it off as appropriate. People saying that we know how to do remote instruction and we have done it, so will that be a consideration? And would it be possible to do entire district on remote or partial by choice district on remote for families and staff that feel that that is best for them? And if you wouldn't mind starting and then maybe passing it off to Mr. Dale.
Absolutely. So we lost some real valuable time in instruction when we were forced to go to a remote instruction model during the pandemic. Clearly, there was learning loss when that took place because there's nothing more productive than having students in person with their teaching staff. What we also learned during the pandemic is it's extremely challenging and near impossible to ask our teachers to teach both in person and remotely at the same time. And we currently don't have the resources to do that. And ultimately, one of the things that happened was, and to no fault of our instructional staff, was a less quality mode of instruction. So we want to move forward. We're not in a position where we would necessarily be able to have some students stay home and some students come into school. It just wouldn't be a productive model, and that's what we've learned during the pandemic. And I really, at this point in time, do not want to have the entire district go remote. Some of the issues that we have is connectivity, supervision of students, the quality of instruction. All of those are lessons we've learned. So at this point in time, we're going to do everything we can to keep the school open and have kids continue to come into school. Mr. Dale, anything else to add?
Yeah, the only thing I add is I think it's the importance of meeting with law enforcement this weekend to listen to their expertise and make sure that we capture how we can continue to keep the district open. Again, the district has a budget in place. So at this point, trying to recreate classrooms and adjust for the two incidents is not something we're able to do right now.
Thank you very much. Ms. Planey, we do have people continuing to ask about the options because they say that their children do not have to remain in school for learning. What would that look like if a parent chose to take their child out of school indefinitely and they wanted their child to remain learning and progressing? What options do those families have?
So I can talk to you a little bit about home instruction. Home instruction, or homeschooling as it's often referred to, is a choice that a parent can make. If a parent is interested in homeschooling their child or their children, they can unenroll in the school district and enroll in homeschooling. At that time, the responsibility for the education lies with the parent or guardian. And in accordance to the commissioner's regulations, a couple things have to happen. So first, the parent would turn in a letter of intent to notify the school district that they intend to homeschool their child or children and the dates or school years in which they choose to do so. There is an individualized home instruction plan that is submitted to the school district for approval. And at that time, once approved, the parent or guardian can begin home instruction in the method of delivery they choose. Some families choose to enroll in online programs, some choose to develop their own curriculum, some choose to join consortiums of homeschool families as well. And then those families, after submitting the individualized home instruction plan, begin that instruction and then report on a quarterly basis to the district the progress their students are making. There are different requirements based on students in grades 1 through 6, and then students in grades 7, 8, and then different requirements for grades 9 through 12. That information and all of the necessary forms can be found on the Hilton Central School District website under the Office of Instruction Department. There are also great resources on nysed.gov, nysed.gov. If you search home instruction on the New York State Education Department website, you'll find some great regulations and some guidance there as well. And then we use specific forms and paperwork here in the district. If there are families who are interested in pursuing home instruction and find that information difficult to navigate, they can always reach out directly to my office as well, and we're happy to assist.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to another topic, but before that, I do want to share, Dr. Kocourek and everyone on this, that we did receive a comment. It started with a question about attendance, but then went in to say that they greatly appreciate the manner in which the school district has conducted themselves during the recent situation, and they are beyond thankful that all members of their children's school are working together to uphold a safe environment.
Thank you.
You are welcome. This next question will be very likely for Dr. Green to begin, and then Ms. Planey, if you can follow up with that. It is a question who's asking if the child is uncomfortable going to school because of their safety and they are involved in sports or other extracurricular opportunities, Is it possible for them to carry on with their athletics and extracurricular opportunities while remaining out of school for the day due to their feeling unsafe? So Dr. Green and then Ms. Pelini, please.
The expectation for those participating in any extracurricular activities, that if they are going to be participating in an extracurricular activity on that day, that they do attend school.
And I'll speak to this from the home instruction standpoint. If we were looking at an absence for a long period of time and a family's decision to move to home instruction, per New York State regulations, students who are on home instruction do not participate in interscholastic activities nor extracurricular activities provided by the district.
Thank you very much. The next question, I think I'm going to ask Mr. D'Amico to answer, and then if anyone else would like to follow up principal-wise, they may. This has to do with students and cell phones. So with all of this going on, will you please be more flexible about the children having their phones? They understand that it can be a distraction at times, but they do think that the parents are much more comfortable if they can contact their kids at any time.
Thanks for the question. I know each building has a slightly different policy on student cell phone devices. At Merton Williams, we are quite flexible. We have what we use is a zone approach, so red, green, yellow zones throughout the school, which means students are able to have their cell phones with them while they are in school, and at certain points and at certain places throughout the day, they can utilize them if it's a quote green zone. So when they're in lunch, depending on what class they are in and what the teacher's policy is in that room, we do ask that students not have their phones out in the hallway during passing time, as that creates distractions. However, we know, we've shared this with students, and students know that if at any time they do need to contact a parent, or if they know a parent is trying to contact them, they can ask to either utilize their cell phone in their class if they have permission from their teacher to do so. They are also welcome to come to any of our offices where they can either use one of our landline phones that we have in all of our classrooms and all of our offices, or what often happens is a student will come to the main office and they'll make a call on their cell phone to connect with their family members. So we remain flexible in that. We know that you know, in the 21st century, it's something that that can be useful at times, and we certainly saw where it was useful, certainly on Wednesday, to help unite families back with their children, and we plan to, you know, utilize them when needed, but to also maintain some of the rules that we have in place in our building.
Would any other principal like to elaborate on that, or did Mr. D'Amico cover it for all 5 schools? Okay, great, thank you. This next question is high school specific. The parent is asking if there is a better process to be looked at when trying to remove their child faster to ease the congestion. High school students are more capable. This person's child was stuck for a long time because their ride was down the road in traffic. They sent an email. They told the teacher that the person was there. However, they were not able to get them. This person also adds in, Dr. Green, though, thank you very much for all that you've done for the students through this time.
Thank you for that compliment. So if this is referring to Wednesday, at the high school, we did have every single student off of campus within a 2-hour time frame. I don't think it would be very safe to have a student be dismissed to walk down the road, especially considering the extra congestion. So I don't know if we could do any better knowing the current system that we have with our roadways in place. As far as today goes, you know, obviously the high school is a very large school. I mean, it's over 1,400 students. And so we were able, we were at a certain point this morning dismissing students through the attendance office at a rate of like about 12 a minute, if you were to do the math on that. And so the one thing that I would add is we've always had the system in place, because I know some parents who were physically present in the school, and I was you know, interacting with them outside of the attendance office, is that in addition to phone call, which obviously we were getting a little bit overwhelmed with phone calls and parents were not able to get through, is that you do have the ability at any time to email the attendance office And plenty of parents do take advantage of that. It's just when their child is sick on any given day. And so we were processing students that way and not even having them necessarily sign out, but just acknowledging that their parent has notified the attendance office. And then when their parents were present, letting them go to make it as quick as possible. And like I said, we were dismissing like about a dozen students a minute at one point.
Thank you very much. This next question is going to be for Dr. Kocourek, and then I assume you may want to pass off part of it to other people. So the question has to do with the different approaches this morning. Why was the middle school and the high school in a lock-in today while the 2 elementary schools were held on buses? 1 elementary school was delayed. Was this due to the fact that there was a different level of concern at the schools? Who made this decision and why was it handled differently by building?
All right. Well, first of all, what I'll tell you is that at the end of the day, it's my decision as the superintendent, but I certainly work in collaboration. Today, I was working in collaboration with all of the administrators on the call today, along with Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And really what the thought process is, when the threat was relayed to the district, we were already in session at the high school in Merton Williams. So that caused us to move into a lockout and then a shelter in place as we brought the nitrate dogs in. So that was important for us to try to maintain the instructional day. At that same time that the threat came in and students were at the high school and in Merton Williams, our bus drivers were out picking up students who attend Northwood and Village Elementary. So the thought process was to bring the buses in and work with Monroe County Sheriff's Office to clear those buildings. So the nitrate dogs wanted to get them into the buildings, clear the buildings, and ultimately the plan didn't go as well as we had hoped. We had hoped to be able to clear those buildings much quicker, hold the students on the bus, and then bring them in. And then the decision to delay Quest was the fact that we were dealing with sweeping and making sure everybody was safe at the high school in Merton Williams, and then also preparing the buildings for Northwood Elementary and Village. So we felt at that time a 2-hour delay would be a responsible delay for us to be able to clear Quest as well, and also get the buses back out to pick up the Quest students and bring them in. Once again, the effort here is to make sure that we can keep the buildings clear and safe, but also our goal was to have a day of instruction. We did not want to cancel. We wanted to make sure that the people who are making these threats understand that they're not disrupting the learning environment. There is experience in the past, and clearly we'll make the best decision to keep people safe with the information that we have. But if we cancel every single day, every time the threat comes in, they will continue. There's a potential for copycats, and we will be in a position where it's very difficult for us to maintain a quality instructional day for our students. With that being said, when we need to cancel, we will. Today was a complex decision. Wednesday was a complex decision. Wednesday was a little different than it is, and it really depends on the information we get from law enforcement and at what time the threat comes in.
I think one additional factor that played into that decision as well is that Quest is on a different start time than Northwood and Village, and so those bus runs hadn't yet begun, where Northwood and Village already had students loaded on buses and on their way to the school.
Thank you very much. Okay, this next question, we're going to start with Dr. Green, and then we're going to work our way right through the principals, and we'll wrap it up with a district answer about communication. So we'll go Dr. Green, then Mr. D'Amico, Mr. Warren, Ms. Perkowski, and then Dr. Rudd. Dr. Green, we have someone that's saying they'd like to use the high school parents Facebook page, and they like to get pertinent information about the school, which it typically has. However, recently there's a lot of banter about personal opinions and views on different topics happening in the district, one being the book that has been mentioned. It's believed that this constant back and forth will only hurt the ongoing situation in the families when families are really trying to find their one reliable place for communication. Where can parents go, and what specifically is your social media or other communication to families that they can always rely on and ensure there will be no choice banter on that.
Thanks for that great question. So what I believe that that question is referring to is a privately run Facebook group that is not run by myself. We do have a high school Facebook page. It's the Hilton High School Student and Family Connection. What you'll see that page used for is updates that align also with my Twitter account and Instagram account. But really, when it comes to actually sharing news and updates, there's going to be once a week email that I send out with a link to our Student and Family Connection. And so that is going to be all of the official important information coming out of the high school. The reason why we started that Facebook page as well as my Twitter account, Instagram account, is really for sharing out all of the good that goes on in the school, which we have plenty of that. And so people get to follow those social media accounts to learn about the good things going on. But so as far as for official news from the high school, that's going to be in my weekly email, Student and Family Update. I do send that to all of the high school students as well, not just the parents and guardians. I like to think that as a high school age student, they can be responsible for checking email and being up to date on things that are important for them. And so that's definitely the way to go for at the high school level. And again, there is a parent-run Facebook group, that can be useful. I know, like, we just had a very successful senior bash that is a parent-led event, and I know that account utilized heavily to promote the volunteers, and so there's plenty of good that comes from that as well. But for official news, that's going to be coming from myself and my email that I send out to all students and families once a week, typically on Fridays. Actually, this week I did send it out yesterday afternoon because I thought it was more timely to provide an update yesterday.
I can share for Merton Williams. So similar to Dr. Green, the bulk of the information that gets shared from Merton Williams comes through the Merton Williams Family Post. That is the website/blog that I run. So that information that's posted there is the most up-to-date and accurate information. And on that page, there's also links to our recently rebranded Merton Williams Twitter page, which again is used to promote the good that's going on in Merton Williams. Similar to other buildings, I do use Infinite Campus Messenger to send links to the most up-to-date posts that are then put on the homepage of the Merton Williams Family Post. So you can search that by keyword, you can search that by date of post. There are also quick links at the top that lead you to other pieces of information if you're looking for the most recent announcements that happened in our building. If you need to find out about counseling info or attendance info, if you need to look at our code of conduct, we try to use the Merton Williams Family Post as a one-stop shop for the information that you need for our building.
All right, so elementary school for Quest, we have a monthly blog called Questions and Answers. That goes out once a month through Infinite Campus email. We do have a Quest Twitter account and a Quest Instagram account. Those are more used for celebrations and to kind of showcase the cool stuff happening with inside the school. We will also use Infinite Campus for important emails and communication that needs to go out in live time and be viewed quickly. And then obviously being an elementary school, we also have teachers that communicate with their families on a regular basis, all hopefully at least once a week. So we have that another layer of communication with our elementary classrooms as well.
So at Northwood, we have a monthly family newsletter that we send out that has a lot of information. It has important dates that families can mark their calendars for, any important news. We also use the Infinite Campus email, the e-blast, to update families. In addition to that, we have Northwood LM1, which is our Twitter page. We will often showcase things that happen around the building and also building celebrations. In addition to that, our school website has a lot of important contact information that families can utilize. And again, our staff also send out typically weekly newsletters to families with important things that are happening in the classroom.
All right, so similar to what you've heard from some of the other schools, particularly at the elementary level, at Village, of course, we do have ongoing communication from our teachers to families. And in terms of celebrations, we do have both a Village Twitter account as well as my own Twitter account that we use to celebrate things. But the place to go for key information is the Village Elementary Principals blog, which is linked off of our school homepage. And that is where you'll find ongoing updates. We do send updates out as well through Infinite Campus Messenger so that the most important things are being delivered directly to our families.
Thank you so much. And just to double back for the district to make sure families know the safest or community members' best place to get accurate information, Mr. Geist, can you share what those reliable sources are for our community and families?
Sure, we have, obviously the best site to get information is our district website, right? So the question was about, I want to get away from the banter back and forth, regardless of what side you're on for a given topic. So the website, it will be a key spot. We have a website for the district. We have a website for each of the buildings. We have a website for various departments. So that is probably going to be the most reliable for information. We also have district-run Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. That comes out of our communications office. Those are the official ones for the school district. We do have official ones for various buildings, as the principals have said. So all of those are good avenues to subscribe to those so that you can get information as it comes out.
Thank you. Mr. Adele, earlier you talked about communication and Infinite Campus Messenger for texting, phone calls, and emails. If someone were to miss one of those, or they hung up too fast, or they heard the neighbor talking about it, or they weren't on the right group, is there a place that they can follow up with that?
One of the areas that we believe we can improve on is also placing the messages that have been sent out onto our website. That's something that we're going to be exploring next week. We also believe that parents have a variety of messaging apps to communicate with schools. We're looking at it as a district, as well as enhancing our website. We recognize that that's an area that we believe we could improve on. So we are currently looking at upgrading our website because there are much smoother communication tools that we believe that can help us with this very effort.
Thank you very much. This next question is connected. We will answer it in tandem by David Zana, our Director of Safety and Security, and then by Matt Schultz, our Director of Transportation. So between Wednesday and Friday, the questions come out with the buses were kept close to the school, yet there was a bomb threat. What decision-making caused the buses to be kept so close to the school? And the buses were there, the children were on them, but we kept the children at school. Why wouldn't we send them home? Why send the buses if you're not going to let the kids leave anyways? And so if you can just talk a little bit, Mr. Nzana, about the safety and what the decision was about where the buses were located during the time on Wednesday and today. And then Mr. Schultz, if you can just follow up with why the buses, if they weren't actually taking the kids home, what was the point, as this person asks?
So the buses were used as an evacuation point due to weather conditions, even though there wasn't really any precipitation. It was temperature-wise a little cold. So if we were out for a long period of time, not that we would be concerned about any kind of frostbite or anything, but it just may be uncomfortable for kids. So putting them on buses will protect them from the elements. As far as where the buses were parked, if you look at our district campuses, when we are bringing in 20 to 30 buses, we really have to utilize the bus loop where we would do arrival and dismissal. There really are no other locations within the campus to move buses. When the decision was made that we were going to reunify our students with our families, we had sent the message that we were going to do it from school. So at that point, we really lost the opportunity to do any type of off-site reunification. We were committed to using the school district. As far as a pipe bomb, not to get technical, I'm not going to do that, but a pipe bomb overall is a very small explosive. And if it was inside the buildings, as the email suggested, it would have been contained within the school. The school is made of concrete block. And there's multiple layers where the explosion would not have reached outside. If, most likely what would have happened is if any type of fire would have occurred, then we treated it just as any other type of fire or explosion. We would evacuate. We evacuate to different areas outside the school. We maintain a safe distance, and we felt that everybody was safe at that point. I will tell you that it was extremely difficult to move all 5 buildings evacuating wise at the same time. That is just not something that the school district was really planning on. Generally, if there are any type of bomb threats or any type of reason to evacuate, it is at one building. And, that allows us to have the other buildings to move to, and we are able to use resources from other buildings. Because all 5 buildings were being evacuated at the same time, now we're only allowed to use the resources we have available for that school building. So I felt that using buses was very appropriate and the safest manner to keep our students and our staff safe while we waited for parent reunification.
And our buses, as mentioned earlier, are another layer of protection. They also allow us to, whether elementary, middle school students, if we're just out in the open field, there could potentially be some consideration there to their safety. And then also, I know things probably didn't go as well as everybody would want through the reuniting process, but it gives us some lotus of control over those classes to keep students safe as well.
I would say for today, I would just, reiterate what Mr. Anzana said. Once the notification was put out to reunify at school, that was going to be really the best place for students to be able to be. A couple of reasons for that. They were out of the elements. Like Dr. Kosorik said, buses are made in specific ways, most usually for accidents on roadways, but they are very safe vehicles. It's actually the safest way to get to and from school. And I think this morning in particular, the students were on buses with bus drivers they knew. Bus drivers knew the parents that were going to be coming to the buses to pick up those kids. We were able to have staff from each of the elementary buildings get on those buses with kids that they knew. And our drivers did a tremendous job. They were reading library books with kids. They were playing I Spy with kids. They were calm and collected. And I hope that most of the students on the bus felt the same way, because the drivers and attendants really took the lead and those personal relationships were there. I know it was an extended period of time. It was about 2 hours. We even had some students escorted over to our transportation building from Village Elementary School to use our restroom from adults. So that allowed us to be a little bit more creative in terms of the facilities and, how close they were and stuff like that, and, to be able to safely do that. We were also ready. The last comment I'll make is we were also ready as a transportation department. If the decision was made to ultimately get students away from buildings further, if that was deemed necessary, we would have been able to do that. Or if we were able to, the decision was made to bring kids home. At some point we would have been able to do that. So based on the level of the threat and the needs at the time, we were going to be able to be really reflective. But I think the biggest point in this morning's threat and the timing that it came in was to have students be with a familiar adult that they knew, that they were comfortable with. Staff from the schools were able to come out and, reinforce that, to keep kids as calm and collected and to reassure them that they were going to be safe.
Thank you very much. Dr. Green, we have a parent asking about the dismissal procedures this week, and in comparison to the dismissal procedures typically midday for a student at the high school. Can you please share those 3 differences? A typical day if a student's getting picked up midday, Wednesday's dismissal for a student, and then today's?
Sure. So typically, in an ideal scenario, a student is going to arrive to school on time with a signed note from their parent indicating when they need to be leaving school. And so when that happens, then our attendance clerk is able to input that directly into our campus system and issue the student a paper pass that they're able to bring with them into school for the day. And at the appropriate time, as planned, the student is able to use that pass, show it to their teacher to exit the building and sign out at the attendance office. Obviously, a lot of times life happens to get in the way and the parent is not able to send in that note ahead of time. And so then they are calling the attendance office in the moment perhaps. And so in that instance, then the attendance clerk has to input it in the system, and then we will be calling that student in their classroom to have them dismissed. That can be delayed, if the teacher did not answer the phone because they're in the middle of some instruction, or perhaps the student is at lunch, or if they're in a different setting, like perhaps inside the gym for phys ed class. And so then we would have to utilize one of our youth assistants to physically track down that student to then inform them like, hey, your parent had called you out, and then go. And so that can certainly take a bit of time. On Wednesday, we treated that as an evacuation and an early dismissal. And so at the high school level, students are a little bit older, more responsible. We do have plenty of students that walk to school on a daily basis. We have plenty of students that drive to school. We've issued over 260 parking passes to our students this year. Other students ride with those students that drive. And so I was clear on the announcements on Wednesday to treat this as if it was a dismissal at the end of the school day, or if you are a driver, or if you ride with somebody who drives, or if you are a walker, you are free to go. If you are somebody that is going to be relying upon waiting for a ride from your parent or guardian, or eventually needing the bus, then we would be going into the bus loop in the front of the school to contact your parent or guardian and wait on the buses, which we were able to do. And that whole process on Wednesday, like I said, took less than 2 hours for all 1,400 plus students who have left campus. Most, did leave without needing district transportation, but we did provide that for those who needed it. And then as far as today goes, I explained the typical process. And so if we were to go through that full process today with over 1,000 students leaving the building within a couple hours, that just would not have been able to happen. It wouldn't happen in that time frame. So what we utilize is myself, assistant principals, all were outside outside of the security desk and talking to students in groups as they were coming, clarifying that their parent or guardian has notified the school, asking if their parent or guardian was present at the school, either in their car or directly in the foyer area, and dismissing in waves like that. We do have a full-time attendance clerk. We also have my secretary in the main office. Both of them were absolutely swamped today dealing with the volume. We had additional support from our counseling office as well. But as you can imagine, as I alluded to earlier, we were processing students in waves. I mean, many per minute. And so we were relying upon students to be responsible and trying to check with them in groups that they did have their parent or guardian notify the school, and that if they were there, they were ready to be picked up and they were able to leave.
Thank you very much. Mr. Geis, this next question is for you. We have parents saying that they've been in the district a long time and they were aware of evacuation procedures, whether they had experienced them with incidents in specific buildings, or if it was something that they had just been made aware of through being a part of the school. That it used to be that you would go somewhere else. So why weren't children walking with their teachers from their schools to the Firemen's Hall, down the street, the Fire Hall, Grace and Truth Sports Park, athletic fields, things like that?
Yeah, I guess I'll start by saying, information was coming in fast and furious to us. We were working really closely with law enforcement. We discussed several different options. The options that I think everybody was most comfortable with was keeping kids on the buses. That's why we deployed the buses to each of the schools. And that was the case. In today's age of social media, when information gets out there in a matter of minutes or seconds, had we tried to have people walking down the street in classes with just the sheer volume of families coming to pick up their kids, I think it would have put them even in more danger. So we worked really closely with law enforcement. We wanted to keep kids safe. We got them out of the elements. I think everybody did the best that they could. under a time where we were evacuating all 5 buildings at the same times. You know, I've worked in this district for a long time now, obviously attended school as well. There has not been a time where we've had to evacuate all 5 buildings at once. So this was new territory for us. It's something that we continue to reflect on, and we will continue to develop and improve on our practices if we ever have to, evacuate all the buildings at one time again.
Thank you. Dr. Kasorik, can you give an overarching view of the reunification process and expectations? We have families that are concerned because from school to school, the process was different, maybe slightly or maybe varying. We've heard from the different levels of principals why that might be. And as well as they would get one direction from law enforcement, perhaps on the street, and then they would come up onto school grounds and perhaps get a different set of directions, maybe 100 yards further into school grounds or 50 yards, and another staff member had to change the plan, and then things were different again. So can you just give an overarching explanation about the reunification process for families with their children and why it would vary from building to building or from place to place on school grounds?
Well, I would say when you're working with human beings, each human being is handling a situation in a different fashion. There is an overall expectation that was communicated on how to reunite our students with our families. In the crisis mode, at some of our buildings, it went smoother than other buildings. That involved how staff was executing the plan. As far as communication between law enforcement and the district, in the field, while you're having law enforcement agents out there, they are most likely not communicating directly with the staff as close as we want to work together. And it's important for us to collaborate and have a good relationship. A lot of those law enforcement agents are carrying out the sweeps of the buildings and not necessarily having the information to communicate accurately with how we're going to reunite with our students. So our law enforcement did an outstanding job. We are so thankful for them. But if they were telling you how to reunite with their child, that is not information they would have. So I'm assuming that they were doing the best they could with what they thought should happen. And then always similar to the question on where you get real accurate information about the district, that's always with the district staff. So the staff should have been communicating with you what the practice is. Not making any excuses whatsoever. We can always get better at what we do. Today, we did have a debrief meeting after managing the current emergency today with the principals and with Mr. Inzana to make sure that we were refining our reunification process. So moving forward, if we do need to use that process, it will be a much improved process.
Thank you very much. This next question is also for you, Dr. Kasorik, and possibly Mr. Inzana. So a couple Quest parents have asked if there's anything additional being done for the students in their school because the threats are being made toward the school, toward the superintendents individually or board members perhaps, as well as toward district office. So they feel that there may be potentially an increased threat for students here. Is that true? And is there anything different or additional being done for students at this school?
Well, I will tell you the threat was at towards my personal home and family. And then the threat also indicated that every one of our schools had between 1 and 3 pipe bombs placed at that. So with that being said, we have worked to improve the security of all buildings, but especially at Quest because of the fact that district office is now located here. We've recently been able to, through capital improvement, add additional fire doors that separate Quest Elementary from district office. So if there were to be a threat that initiated in the school, not necessarily via explosive, but any other type of threat, we do have the secure vestibule entrance. All first floor does have bullet resistant film. And then Mr. Warren has the ability to shut off the building from district office. So at this point in time, through capital project planning, we have considered putting district office in a different location. But unfortunately, at this point in time, without being able to pass a capital project of that magnitude, we wouldn't be able to move district office outside. But that's always considered, and I know that Mr. Inzana's office is also here in district office, so he is able to respond immediately to any additional security needs here at Quest Elementary School. Dave, if there's anything else to add, please do so.
No, I think we covered it. I mean, we're going to treat all our buildings the same way as far as how we keep them safe and secure. If there's a specific threat to district office, not necessarily to Quest Elementary School, then we'll move in additional resources and security measures if need be. But I would actually, as a parent, almost feel better that district office is located with Quest, because you have that many more, resources, staff member, administrators right here at the school. So not to say that, any of the other schools are lacking, but, I would almost, say in reverse, that I would feel more safe at Quest Elementary.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have a series of questions that I think are going to be pretty quick and direct. So Dr. Kocourek, I'm going to ask them of you, and if you want to pass them off, go right ahead. Are bags being checked for people who are not staff members entering the schools?
No.
Okay. This person's concerned about the lack of security or youth assistance at after-school events and that the doors are currently left unlocked. Is that going to continue?
No. We continue to recruit security through Mr. Inzana's connections. All of our hires have been retired Monroe County Sheriff's deputies, New York State Police, or Greece Police. We are no longer continuing with our practice of having the doors unlocked after school.
Thank you. Mr. Inzana, how can families be sure that their kids are safe in the school buildings for after-school activities?
Well, all the activities are going to be supervised by adults. There are staff members inside working the building. We have our custodial staff that works our second shift. There are staff members, administrators that are here late sometimes in the building. So there is a security presence outside that is constantly checking all 5 of our campuses, looking for any indications that there might be suspicious people or conditions. We have people monitoring cameras as we do during the day at our high school and middle school buildings. We would feel very safe. I would say that somebody could suggest that, well, anybody can just still walk into the building. And I would say, well, that's correct, but it's like any other public place. If you were to go to the grocery store or library or the mall, these are public places that, people can't just be screened. But we have changed the policy as far as having doors unlocked for early evening events. We will be going back to all locked facilities after security leaves.
Thank you. Additionally, has any thought been given to working with local law enforcement to ensure that they are present for large gatherings or events after school hours or in the evening, such as athletics, musicals, and plays?
Yeah, we always work with law enforcement. Sheriff's Office is our primary law enforcement for the Hilton Parma area, and our partners at the Greece Police Department. Both agencies are outstanding as far as giving special attention to our evening events. If we believe that they are very large crowds, they may station someone temporarily for us or for the entire event. But again, it always comes back down to resources. And, while we would love to have, a police officer here 24/7, the reality is that's just not going to happen. They have other responsibilities within the community that they patrol.
And although they are off duty, the number of parents within the district that work within law enforcement attend all of our events on a regular basis. And clearly they wouldn't be on duty at that point in time, but the amount of expertise in the Hilton community that's in law enforcement are often present at many of our events in schools as parents and guardians and supporters of the district.
I just wanted to add that I think the importance of seeing something and saying something comes into play here. We know that by going back to a locked door at all schools, that's an inconvenience for the clubs and advisors, individuals mostly. But also, if you see a student propping a door, if you see anyone propping a door, a parent propping a door who's coming to an after-school event, please remove that prop, let the door close. Again, that's something that's going to be super important in order to ensure the after-school safety, and so that schools can open safely in the morning as well.
Thank you. I'm going to share a few compliments that you have all received live while we're doing this session right now. Just after I make this suggestion to Mr. Dale, in terms of talking about different ways to communicate and adding messages to the website, this person also suggests using an automated message on the district phone. So if someone calls 392-1000, they have an option to choose to hear if there is a recent emergency or all call notification that has gone out. Not sure if that can happen, but letting you know.
Yes, I think, again, if that's an area of growth, again, we heard that feedback again today, so that when we, again, go into an evacuation type system, on Wednesday, we evacuated all students and staff. And so when parents couldn't access anybody, it's because every single person was outside. But placing a message on that phone to say, yes, we are currently in an evacuation. Please see the district website. Yes, that's good feedback and something we can improve on.
Great, thank you. Okay, panelists, take a breath and have a sip of water for a moment. Dr. Kasorik, thank you for your leadership and strength through this call as well as this week. This has been a horrific disruption to our community. They're grateful for your leadership and strength. Thank you for keeping everyone safe. That comes directly from the Hilton staff. And also, thank you for caring for their children amidst all of the chaos. They were okay, especially because so many that work in the district are not able to connect with their own children. Positive comment directly for the forum from a community member. Thank you to the entire district administration, staff, and teachers for professionalism in keeping all of their children safe during these horrendous attacks on our schools. Thank you to everyone working toward the safety of all the Hilton School District children, teachers, and administrators, and thank you for keeping them updated through robocalls, press conferences, emails, messaging, and this evening. Overall, they are very happy with everything with the school's response. They know there are areas for improvement. They know that you're doing the best that you can, and they're very thankful for all you're doing to keep them informed. Thank you to Hilton staff, administrators, and teachers for their work this week, and very much for holding this session and taking all the time and energy that goes into connecting and working with families through this horrible situation. Huge thank you to the transportation department during these events. They were ready to go at a moment's notice. Unbelievable how fast the bus drivers were in place, assuming that they were already finished working at that point in the day. Thank you to Dr. Green and the entire high school staff. They were in contact with their children throughout the day. The children shared continually that they felt everything in the high school was under control. They were safe, and every decision made to keep for the full day was because it was calm and under control. Their children chose to stay due to the actions of the high school staff. They appreciate you. Someone else said they want to praise the efforts and diligence shown by each and every member of the district's administration, the staff, the teachers, the security office, and transportation department. The entire community is thankful, and you should be proud of your response in such a difficult and unprecedented situation. You took an impossible and stressful situation and did the best you could to protect and serve our children and adults in your care. We appreciate you. We appreciate you taking this extra time on a Friday evening after such a long and difficult week to be here to address concerns and questions. We are and we will continue to be Hilton Strong. Okay. And we do have a few more questions. These are school specifics. I'm just going to ask a few. This one is for Northwood specifically. If you can just share a little bit about practices that may have been different, and you may not know because you weren't at the other buildings, but the way things were handled working with Greece Police as opposed to the other law enforcement agencies that may have been present at the other 4 schools for families going back and forth. buses weren't the obstacle, but today there was a decision not to move people off the grounds. Then it was confusing coming in. They had to walk in. Then they were suddenly moving in with their cars. And it seemed, we talked a little bit about this before, but can you just share what was going on that you're able to share in your communication and connections with the Greece Police Department to keep the children and staff safe today?
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. We worked very closely with the Greece Police Department. We had a number of Greece police officers on a traffic detail supporting North Greece Road. There was a significant amount of traffic there. Additionally, as you entered into Northwood's campus, we tried to align the cars so that we could create a stop point where parents could pull up, give us the names of their students, and then we could retrieve them using staff as support to retrieve them off of the buses and then, usher them to their parents' cars. In addition to that, we had a number of families that came on foot, either from the neighboring communities or just parked and walked down. Again, it was very congested. So we had a number of staff supporting those families in trying to, again, get the name of the student or students, and then having a staff runner go to the bus to locate the student and bring them to their family. It was a difficult time. I want to commend the staff in working very closely with law enforcement and making sure that we built a system that was as efficient as we possibly could make it.
Thank you very much. This next question, Ms. Feeney, I'm going to ask of you to speak in general for the district and plans for moving forward. This parent empathizes with the fact that the attendance office was very likely overwhelmed. Is there a better process being considered or looked at to be able to remove students, very potentially from secondary or high school, in a faster method where parents would be able to do something to sign them out without actually walking all the way up into the office, making a phone call or emailing? This person was emailing multiple people and calling the office, realizes that was probably part of the congestion. What's being looked at, what can be done, and any thoughts yet on how the district can be more proactive?
I appreciate the sympathy for our attendants and secretaries in the offices today. I think part of the issue is when you're trying to dismiss or evacuate such a large group of students at one time, I don't know that we can really control the volume. We do also want to be mindful of student safety and that they do actually have permission to leave with their parents' permission or guardians' permission. So that's part of that process at the secondary schools as well, just making sure that we have confirmation from home that the parent or guardian does in fact want their child released, like in a situation for today. Due to the close proximity of the threats Wednesday and Friday and our best efforts to debrief, we know we still have more of those conversations to have with principals because of the different procedures in each of their buildings to come up with the best plans moving forward. I'm very hopeful and wishing that we have a quieter week next week that will allow us to do some of that work. But at the time right now, I don't have a better suggestion, but please do know that we already have meetings set up and in place to debrief as a large group, as well as each of the individual principals to talk about some of those systems that might work better. And again, I appreciate the parents looking for ways to streamline the process and to think about that. It's certainly on our radar and something that I hope we have the time to put into next week. But, you know, and our best hopes are they don't have to continue to practice it, but we can get really good at making the plan just in case.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Dr. Kasorek, speaking of making plans, is there an opportunity for people to give feedback or be involved? They had heard that emailing was one option. Is that going to continue to be the best way for community or families to be involved or to help share ideas and inform you and the district of their thoughts and suggestions?
Absolutely. I will always welcome telephone calls, emails. I would also recommend that if you want to reach out to your child's building principal, they will also be able to take that feedback and information. If anyone else in the district, as far as district employees want to provide feedback to their direct supervisor, that would certainly be the case. And we'll look forward to continuing to work on our communication with families. But if there are other ideas and suggestions, email would be an opportunity for us to take those suggestions in writing and look to review those as we continue to debrief and improve.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dale, I'm going to ask you this next question. This person was praising the idea of using Center for Youth based on the description that Mr. Warren gave us a while ago. They also have questions. If the Center for Youth were to come in and work with their children, would they be background checked by Hilton standards? Another parent had asked a similar question. So when it's not a teacher that you're employing or hiring, basically, how can they be sure that you have vetted or done a background on every single adult that is allowed in the schools?
So the district has had a relationship with Center for Youth. In one of my former districts, we also had a relationship for Center for Youth. Contracted employees are New York State fingerprinted. That is a requirement, as it is for all of our employees. They are not able to start on campus and work with students until we do get New York State clearance. That also allows that if there was ever any contact with law enforcement, an arrest, we would be contacted, and their supervisor would be contacted. I've been in contact with the Center for Youth supervisor as we have this ongoing relationship. So they follow a very similar process. I know that the principals have been involved with the interviewing and meeting of those individuals, but they are just like a contracted employee who are fingerprinted, New York State fingerprinted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Dr. Kocourek, if this were to happen again, I know we talked a little bit about third threat, and it were to happen and you were to decide to keep schools open, will the parents be told that they can pick up right away? They felt conflicted hearing messages saying school would be resuming while seeing neighbors and others rushing down the street to get their children. What's the best way for them to know that it is an option to pick up their child at any time, regardless of what we're planning to do?
Yeah, I wish I had a perfect answer for that one. I think that you always have the right to pick up your child. We are going to process any type of threat or information that we have to the best of our ability. In the situation that took place on Wednesday, we had made the decision that we would request the parents come pick up their children. Today, we really were hoping that people would trust the district to have their students in session. Understandably, that was not the case, so parents did choose to come. So I don't have a ideal answer for that. Once again, as a parent, you always have the right to come pick up your child at any point in time. You know, really, like I said, the goal today was to try to vet the threat, make sure that we had the buildings cleared and to move on with the school day. And unfortunately, that didn't work as well as we had planned. So I don't have a specific answer. I'm not going to be able to tell you sometimes pick up your kids and sometimes don't. It's really going to be specific to the situation that we're attempting to work through.
Thank you very much. I just have to file through another question here. Okay. Safety-wise, Mr. Anzana, as you look at things long-term and you want to make sure we remain vigilant with situations like this and others, aside from the reactions and plans in the very near future, as well as not just constantly increasing staff or increasing presence and decreasing, has this made you think about those longer-term decisions with the ways that we keep the district safe, the staffing, and the presence of different youth assistants, et cetera?
Well, we have a district-wide safety and security committee that meets during the school year. So certainly there we have discussions. One of my jobs is to annually update any emergency plans that we have for our buildings. So, you know, we're in a constant state of continuous improvement as far as trying to, you know, do everything we can to make the district as safe as possible. You know, in the short term here, we're going to look at lessons learned from the past 2 days and try to make some changes or improvements in areas that we felt need improvement on. But then also at the same time, you know, we will be continually looking at our overall safety plan for future.
Thank you very much. We are going to shift gears and talk a little bit about emotional health and emotional safety. This first question, Ms. Pleen, I'm going to ask most of these directly to you. Has to do with came from a parent who has a very young child in kindergarten. She said that they know their child is perfectly safe in school and that all is well. They're very grateful for all that has happened the past several days. However, while they can't guarantee that it won't happen again, they don't want their 6-year-old repeatedly exposed to trauma, as any parent wouldn't. Knowing they're going to continue to send their child to school, their concern has to do with their child at such a young age associating the madness that's happening in our community with the sacred, safe environment that is supposed to be school. So what will the plan be for parents who feel the same? And maybe some will choose to keep their children home, maybe some will send them while they're working through all of this and the kids are taking the toll emotionally. What advice or resources, support, information do you have for these families so that they know things are being done in school and that you're offering things to them for out of school?
So I think I would touch again on our trauma, illness, and grief team in the short term. That is a team that we have throughout the district to mobilize at any time in order to provide additional counseling as necessary. And as we talked a little bit about earlier, we have the ability to also access that Monroe County TAPE response as well, should we find that we need additional support that is ongoing. One of the things that our teachers have done a fantastic job with over the course of the last 2 days is reassuring students and being a steady presence for students. At our elementary level today, they left their classrooms and got out onto the buses. They were the individuals that were walking their students from buses to their parents. They're having conversations with kids throughout the day. It is something that we can also look at with our typical social emotional supports that we put in place in the classrooms to do check-ins in the mornings or check-ins at the start of classes. Those are things that we're working on as a district and actually have been all year in order to be able to take a temperature for where students are when they're coming into the classroom. So what I would encourage parents to do is to balance the scary with the safe. And I think it's important to acknowledge how students do feel. So allowing students to talk and making sure, or our children, so making sure that at home we're asking questions. How did you feel today is different than were you scared today? And so when we ask questions where they're very open-ended and the child is using their words to identify their feelings, that helps us to prevent from putting those scary thoughts, even though we know how we might be feeling or we can anticipate, use those open-ended questions. We do also have resources through our mental health professionals that we can work to collaborate on over the course of next week to share out, much like we did the article after Wednesday's event. But I think one of the things I would do is ask those open-ended questions. And then when a child prefers something that might be scary, it's good to also point out something in tandem. Oh, I hear that you were really scared. Wasn't it wonderful that Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so was able to? And you're balancing both that thing that is scary with something that you know was positive. And that way they're getting both of those messages at one time. And I would say, certainly if your child is experiencing any sort of additional expression of trauma or of anxiety or of fears, do not hesitate to reach out to the supports in your child's building to make sure they can access the mental health resources that we do have here in the district.
Thank you very much. Panelists, as you know, we are going for quite a bit of time. We're working up toward 2 hours. We are going to take a 5-minute pause.